Welcome back to The Language of Business. I'm Greg Stoller, and we're here in Cambridge in the heart of Central Square. At Backupify, they provide a secure second copy of your cloud data. My guest is Rob May, who is the CEO and founder, and welcome to The Language of Business.
Thanks for having me.
So Rob, you are quoted on LinkedIn as someone who loves to solve complex problems and also are fascinated by the way things are valued.
Yes.
Is that intrinsic value, like making the world a better place, or is that actually financial value of a company?
Yeah, so it's more the financial value of things in general. I'm really interested in the psychological component of valuation, which is not something they typically teach you in finance class, but if you really think about even financial values, they're heavily weighted on expectations of future value, expectations of growth, and everything else. So I really find it fascinating to tease into those things and figure out why things are valued the way they are.
And what is ultimately more important for you, getting to the heart of a great idea or actually starting a long-term successful company?
Wow, that's a great question. I think starting a long-term successful company. There are a lot of ideas, and I've had a lot of ideas. Backupify was actually my 19th business idea. 5 of those made it to sort of the real business stage, and the reason I'm not doing any of the other ones is that they didn't go into that long-term standalone company. So.
How important is marketing communications and culture to your company? Your website is terrific. We've been on it several times preparing for this. You seem to have a unique culture here walking around your offices. How does that factor into your thought process?
Yeah, so marketing communications is incredibly important when you're in a market like Backupify, which is a new market and you have to be evangelical. So because we're launching a product to market that hasn't existed before, you have to be very concerned that people don't think it's something else, that people clearly understand the value prop, and all that kind of stuff. And that really all falls on, marketing communications. Whereas if you were selling something that was in a market that was more well-known and understood, you probably don't need to invest as heavily there, right? It's just like, hey, here's how we differentiate from what else is on the market. And so it's a little simpler. In terms of culture, I think it's very important, and I think it's a mistake that we made early on was not really defining a culture as well as we should have. Actually, one of our 2014 goals is actually to define our culture even more thoroughly and succinctly, because you want to make sure that every person you hire shares the same values and vision about how we work and what kinds of things we do, how decisions get made. And when you hire somebody who's not a cultural fit, it's one of the worst things that can happen to an early stage company.
Where are you from in the United States, and have you imported any of your homeland, your home city culture into Backupify?
Yeah, so we're from Louisville, Kentucky. I also lived in Florida for a good while. 4 of us moved up here from Louisville, and we've since hired one other person from Kentucky and moved them up to Boston. So if this airs in Kentucky, you'll probably get some hate mail. Because we're known there as like the company that got away. But the truth is there are just certain types of companies that you can't build outside of major tech hubs, and I think this was one of them.
Have you introduced any Kentucky sports culture into the company?
We have. So 2 things. Number 1, all of our conference rooms are named after college basketball mascots. I'm a Kentucky Wildcats alma mater, so our main conference room is the Kentucky Wildcats room. And we also have the first 2 days of the March Madness NCAA tournament, our official company holidays.
Looking at your successes, you're certainly no stranger to startups. What's more important to you, building the company or harvesting your success?
I would say at this phase in my life, it's building the company, right? I'm still a young guy. I still have a lot to learn. I feel like building the company, every year it's different. There's more people, more customers, different types of financing, different types of problems. I think the longer that I build the company and learn, the greater my reward is when I decide to harvest someday.
And as you're deciding when to harvest someday, how carefully do you study sector or industry trends?
I look at them really closely. So we think of ourselves as a software services company. So I read the quarterly reports of ServiceNow, Salesforce, Workday, Constant Contact, other SaaS companies to figure out what their metrics look like, what kind of things they're seeing in the market.
And for the benefit of our viewers, SaaS stands for?
Software as a service.
You're 5 years into a very successful startup. How do you determine when it's time to merge, sell, or go IPO?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it boils down again to a lot of personal choice. There are some entrepreneurs who from day one have an exit plan. They want to build it to this stage and sell it or move on. There are other entrepreneurs who they love the idea so much, they think of it as a lifestyle, they just want to ride it as long as they're capable. And the way I think about it is I'm willing to do this as long as I'm having fun. The way somebody could override that decision would be offer such a premium for the company that I would go, wow, maybe I should have fun doing something else. So a lot of employees, when they come on to startups, they ask what your exit expectations are. And I always say, when somebody puts a number in front of me that I go, wow, you think the company's worth that? That's when I would sell.
I like how you described it as a personal decision, but to what extent do you or should you involve employees, your management team, investors, other stakeholders in the decision to merge, sell, or IPO?
That's a good question, and you have to think a lot about that because employees and investors do have their own expectations. One of the best ways to minimize that, I think, is to make sure that everybody's aligned going into it, right? To talk to employees about what my expectations are and what their expectations are about selling the company someday, to talk to investors and understand what are their plans for Backupify. Do they need a quick win? But you do have to think about those things and take them into consideration because this isn't all about me. It's very much about the employees and the investors as well.
You're 5 years into a successful startup. What duty do you owe to your existing customers, whether they've been with you from the beginning or just recently, if you ever choose to merge, sell, or IPO the company?
So the interesting thing about being a backup company is being publicly traded gives you a lot of credibility, right? You've got these customers and they know that if we're publicly traded, you have access to public capital markets. We have, lots of certifications and oversight that a private company doesn't necessarily need. So I actually think IPO would be a very good thing for us. If we were looking at a merger or an acquisition, I would very much think about the impact on the customers because I would not sell Backupify to somebody who really just wanted to acquire our technology and our team and was going to shut down the product because I feel like we owe our customers a lot more than that. They've been big fans and have really helped us build a great company. And in the long run, somebody should want to buy what we've built.
Rob, thank you. Rob May, CEO and founder of Backupify. Question for you. Where do you keep the bucket list for your life's achievements? On the wall of your home office, somewhere on your hard drive, or someplace else?
Greg Stoller talks with Ryan Traeger of Achiever.com next on The Language of Business.